Well, let us prepare ourselves. If you put your hand over your eyes, I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. And now your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. And now put your arms over your heart and just extend out your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that spiritual truth that says every adversity, every unpleasant circumstance in your life, every failure you've ever gone through, every piece of physical pain that you've ever had carries within it the seed of an equivalent benefit. Every adversity, every physical pain, every failure, every unpleasant experience carries with it the seed of an equivalent benefit. And the benefit I'm talking about isn't how to become a better martyr. The benefit I'm talking about isn't how to be that long-suffering person. You know those people. Of course, we've never been one, but you know those people who are long-suffering over something. No, this is the kind of benefit that says you can become a happy, healthy, successful human being. That kind of human being that gets up every morning and says, I can't wait to get out of bed because my day is going to be great because I'm great. My day is going to be great because I am a happy, healthy, and most of all, always successful human being. That's what can happen when we really grasp today's spiritual truth. When we begin to see it, that within every adversity, there's a seed of equivalent benefit. We call it a seed because seeds need to be watered, they need to be nurtured, they need to be noticed if they are to grow. You can't just throw a seed out there, never water, never remember where it is. They need to be nurtured if they're to grow. When we begin to look for the seeds within the adversity and begin to water them in our life, that's when we become a happy, healthy, successful human being. Now, I'm working with a text written by one of the late great metaphysicians of all time, one of perhaps the most prolific writer of all times in terms of self-help and self-acknowledgement. When I say self-help, I'm talking about capital S help, help that you get from the divine every day. And it's called You Can Work Your Own Miracles by a man named Napoleon Hill. Now, most of you remember Napoleon Hill's work because he wrote Think and Grow Rich. He wrote The Seeds to Success. He's written a number of books like that. Been very famous in his life. This book is a little bit different, but for those of you, just to give you a little more background about Napoleon Hill, those of you who've taken Prosperity Plus will remember when Mary Menon Morrissey talks about the young man, the young reporter who went to Andrew Carnegie to interview him. And Carnegie was so impressed with this young reporter, he said, look at young man, I will give you access to 500 of the most successful people on the planet, the richest people, the most famous people, the people who have done the most for the world, not just in terms of money, but the Mother Teresas of the world, the inventors of the world. I will give you access to 500 people if you will interview them carefully and begin to write down what it is that makes them, what they have in common that makes them successful. And then we're going to study that because I believe success can be not only studied, but it can be taught. And so that's exactly what he did. And then he wrote those great books, especially Think and Grow Rich. But I want to talk today about this one little book. It's based on one premise. And the one premise that it is based on is this: successful people have winning personalities. Successful people have winning personalities. Now, the good news is everybody here has a winning personality. Each and every one of us in this room have a winning personality. It has to be loosened. It has to be unveiled. It has to be let out of its cage. But each and every one of us have a winning personality. How do you do that? In order to have a winning personality, you have to really grasp and understand and work with today's spiritual principle, that within every adversity, within every failure, within every unpleasant experience, within every physical or mental pain, lies an equal benefit. Let's talk about that word equal for a minute, because I don't want you to miss it. It's toward the end of the sentence, and I don't want you to miss that word. It's the most important word. It means that it's equal to whatever we're going through. So if your house or your car has been repossessed, you have an equal benefit awaiting you within that. If you've gone through bankruptcy, you have an equal benefit. Not a good enough benefit, an equal benefit going through that. You have a terrible diagnosis going on right now, you have an equal benefit. You got fired from your job unexpectedly or expectedly, you have an equal benefit going on right now available to you. And that's today's spiritual truth. When we embrace it, we are given the gift of courage, and we are given the gifts, all the gifts we need to be able to unveil this. Now, when I talk about a winning personality, I'm not talking about Miss Perky thing, you know, that perky one that goes. I really don't resonate with those folks too much that are all that perky, you know. I especially don't want them on a Monday morning, later in the week, maybe in the afternoon. I'm not talking about Mr. Congeniality. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about those people who understand today's spiritual principle. Now, what he did, now we're a practical church, and he's a practical writer, and that's why this book is so beautiful. He's very practical, and he's chucked it full of stories to help us understand, because you and I learn best through stories. And so you're probably wondering, oh, I hope I can get the book first today. Book's not available today, but it's so old that we had to really dig up. Chris went to great lengths to dig this up, and we have copies coming, but they won't be here this week, but we got it, so don't worry, it's coming. But within this book, he wrote some ways that we could begin to loosen this personality that we all have inside of us. You know, there's some of us who are saying, well, you know what, I just don't have naturally, I'm just not, nobody ever accused me of having a winning personality. I'm sorry, just nobody ever did. You know what? When you were born, you had a winning personality. Adults in your life had to work very, very hard to give you a defeatist personality and hide your winning personality. But I promise you can take this to the bank. It's in there. Your winning personality is absolutely in there. Well, the first thing that we have to do in order to grasp today's spiritual principles, spiritual truth, is to really begin to warm up to this idea of change. Because we cannot go anywhere different than we are right now without something changing. Now, there are some of you in this room say, hey, I'm flexible. I'm like really loose. I like change. If you're one of those people, just for a moment, imagine me telling you that you are going to, in 1 month's time, you are going to move to a different state, and you don't have any choice about it. You're just moving. That's it. You're moving. And that means new schools. It means new friends. It means new workplace. It means where the best hamburger shops are. It means everything you have to go and find out. How happy do you feel right now if you had to think, in 1 month, I'm going to be forced to move where I am and everything is changing? See, we think we know change, but I'm telling you, even the most flexible of us have to work at being more welcoming to have change in our lives. Now, the truth is, we're very familiar with change. You and I are very familiar with change. The majority of the change that's happened, all the change that's happened in the first half of the 20th century, All of the change that happened in the first half of the 20th century was more than all of the change in the rest of civilization. Isn't that amazing? In the first half of the 20th century, the most change happened more than what happened in all of the rest of civilization. We got automobiles. We got moving pictures. We got TVs. We got radios. Now we move into the 21st century, just the very first part of the 21st century, and change really began to rapidly happen with the onset of the internet. Faxes are old hat right now. Did you know that? Faxes are almost obsolete. Now we have so many other ways of communicating instantly with each other. So we're familiar with change. We just aren't so familiar with change in our life. We like to control change. We like to say when our change is going to happen. But the true benefit that is equal to what's happening is often in the change we don't expect. And we did not, well, we invited it, but we didn't know we invited it into our lives. Here's what he says about easy change. He said, nature leads people through change after change by peaceful means as long as people cooperate. But nature resorts to revolutionary methods if people rebel or neglect or refuse to conform to the law of change. The revolutionary method may consist of the death of a loved one or a severe illness. It may bring a failure in business or loss of a job, which forces the individual to change his occupation and seek employment in an entirely new field where he will find greater opportunities which he would never have known if the habits had not been broken up. You see, our soul is always wanting to change and grow. And sometimes it is the seed of that growth lies in the calamity that we're facing. And when we can begin to see that with spiritual eyes, when we begin to train ourselves, don't misunderstand me. I want you to be as successful as those 500 people, but this isn't a success seminar. This is a deeply spiritual concept. That when we can take whatever adversity is thrown at us and look for the seed of what kind of benefit? Equal benefit that we have that's available to us. He says this, Hill says this, the best educated people didn't come from great universities. They came from the school of hard knocks. That school that says, I go through this, but I know within this, yes, I'm crying. Yes, I'm angry. A man told me in the church just not a half an hour ago that he saved up $2,000 and it took him a long time to save up that $2,000. And when he came home one day, somebody had robbed him of all $2,000. And he said initially he went to, but then he went to a different place. Because he didn't even hear the sermon. He never read this book. He just knew intuitively that in order to put himself forward, he was going to have to shift it and see if there wasn't at least some blessing in this whole mess. You and I can do that. Thomas Edison, when he came home from school one day, he came home and gave a note to his parents. And the note said, this child is not fit for education. Okay? And they kicked him out of school. It was before compulsory education. He didn't have to go to school. They just tossed him out of there. And it was the best thing that ever happened, not only to Thomas Edison, but to all of us. Because what happened is he did not have a mind that could work within a school system, but he had a brilliant mind that could work without a school system. His parents were devastated to get this news. But within that news, there was the seed of an inventor who needed to be able to think outside that box. When we can begin to realize, here's what happened to Hill. One of the stories he tells in the book about change for himself, he said when he went to Carnegie to interview him, he was very young. He had just started out. And he went to Carnegie to interview him, and one of the phrases Carnegie said was, look, I want you to really look at these guys these 500 successful people, and then we're going to build a philosophy of success, you and I. And Hill said, I had no idea what the word philosophy meant. And so I ran home and I looked in the dictionary, I looked it up, and then I continued my work. He said, but what it did for me is it said, I realized I needed to not only change, I needed to reinvent myself. And so he began to embark on specific ways that he needed to change in consciousness, not his behavior, but his consciousness, in order to be able to be successful. And he wrote down these 16 ways. And I looked at them and I contemplated them and I prayed about them. And I realized I needed to change in those 16 ways. And so what I did was I copied them all down I typed them all out. Oh, I didn't type them out. Rosie typed them all out. And I copied them all. They're all out there for you. Take them home. Look at them and say, those are 16 ways Napoleon Hill changed his consciousness. Maybe I need to be able to change my consciousness in these 16 ways. Or maybe just even a few. Don't run now, honey. Don't wait. Wait till I got more to say, baby. Okay? But there's more for us to be able to look at and do, and I want you to be able to have those. Okay, so change is the first miracle. The second miracle of life is our unseen guides. Unseen guides. And this is really important. And it's also a little dangerous because we believe that there's nobody outside of us ever, ever, ever that can influence us. Okay? We believe that and we teach it. God can only do for us what God can do through us. Okay. So knowing that, when I talk about unseen guides, Napoleon Hill said, look, I understand that this is my highest self talking to me, and they're products of my imagination. I get that. He said, they're not out there. There's nobody swimming out there talking to me. But my highest self is always trying to broadcast to me. So what he did was he personalized them. And Ernest Holmes told us that we could do that. We could begin to personalize God. God is not a person, but we can personalize God. And so that's what he did. And he developed what he called princes. He had the Prince of Financial Prosperity. That was one unseen guide. The Prince of Sound Physical Health was another unseen guide. He had the Prince of Mind, the Prince of Hope and Faith, the Prince of Love and Romance, the Prince of Overall Wisdom. And so whenever he would begin to have an unpleasant experience in any of those areas where the princes lived, he would simply sit down and begin to have a conversation with one of his princes to find the seed of equal benefit in the unpleasant circumstance. I want to encourage you to do that. I want to encourage you to develop some prince and princesses of different areas of your life and begin to focus on what it is that they, which is you, they might be telling you in order to be able to move you forward. Don't be afraid to play around with this. Napoleon Hill said that almost every time he would ask one of his princes for the seed of equivalent benefit, he would be able to hear what it is. You know, sometimes we think we know it all. We're like teenagers in God's house. We don't know it all. We need some consultants to help us. And so I encourage you to just play around with this idea of prince and princesses. The third miracle, the last miracle, is the gift of pain, physical and mental pain. Now, most of us in this room who are recovering from any kind of addiction already know we can't even count how many seeds of equivalent benefit we have gotten from the disease of whatever it is that we suffer from. We know what those are. We could probably tell you what those are. But that's true in every physical illness as well. Every physical illness holds within it a seed of equivalent benefit. And often within that seed of equivalent benefit is wholeness. It's the return to wholeness. And so I want to encourage you to begin to work with that. He talks about a woman student in his class, a woman who somebody told, by this time Hill is famous, and somebody told him about a woman who had touched this person's heart. And so he said, you know, I don't know why, but I really want you to go and work with this woman, and I don't know why. But there's something about this woman that I think can benefit from your coaching, your life coaching. And so he went to her house, and he said, I knew I was working with somebody very special right in the beginning, because I said to her, I will work with you without charging. And she said, oh, no, you won't. She said, I believe that you are paid for what you do, and I will only work with you under deferred payment. And so he began to hear her story. Well, her story is her husband died in World War I. She was left a war widow. And shortly after he died, she had to have a serious operation. And so she went and had the operation, and the first one didn't take. And the second one didn't take. And after the second one, she had exhausted all of the benefits in her insurance. And in order to have the third surgery, she had to sell her modest home. And she sold her modest home and had the surgery, and it was very successful. And then she needed a place to recover. She said neither one of her son's wives wanted her to recover with them, and her brother didn't want her to recover with him. And so her pastor found a neighbor who brought her into her home and let her recover for the 2 months that she needed to work. She began to look for the seed of equal benefit in her illness. She began to look for the seed of equal benefit from each of the wives and the conversations that they had had. She began to look for the seed of equal benefit in being turned out by her brother. She began to look for the seed of equal benefit in everything she went through. She worked with Hill around this concept. And I don't have time to tell you all the seeds. It's in the book. When you get the book, you'll hear the seeds. But here's what happened. She was appointed by the then President of the United States to the highest post a woman ever had in government. That's where we can go. That's where we can go if we begin to look at this seed and see it has equal benefit. None of us want pain. None of us are looking for pain. None of us want the seed of equal, nothing about the pain. We don't want the pain, okay? But if you have the pain, know that within that pain, there is a seed of equal benefit. Let's take this message into prayer. Knowing that we're in the heart and the mind and the very love of God. There's only one presence. It's that presence with that beautiful little cry right now. It's that presence that is within every breath in this room. It's just the presence. Knowing that I stand in this presence, I stand for truth and love and harmony and joy, and I hold myself accountable to getting as close to that as I can every single day. I give thanks for that. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is. So before I take our gift, I want to talk to our viewers online. You know, we're very blessed. We just now have put our sermons only, not the whole service, just the sermons only on YouTube every week. And we have viewers in South Korea. We have viewers in Israel. We have viewers in the Arab Emirates and Argentina. So to those folks, I want to say hello and thank you for tuning in. And to everyone, including those folks at home, you'll see a little button underneath, and so you can support this ministry by taking your gift in your hand and repeating after me. Money is God in action. I send it forth to bless and to prosper all who come in contact with it. And so it is. Amen.